How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true.
Good evening, I'm Olivia Parker, and this is Infinity News. Tonight, we turn our attention to President Joe Biden's recent solo news conference held after a NATO summit in Washington. The conference sought to address concerns about his ability to serve as president and his prospects in the upcoming 2024 election against former President Donald Trump. However, the conference featured several misleading and inaccurate claims from President Biden. Let's dive into the details. First, President Biden attempted to downplay a gaffe made earlier in the day, where he mistakenly introduced Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin. He quickly corrected himself, saying, "No, I'm sorry, Zelensky," and claimed he then added 5 other names. However, this assertion was false. After correcting the mistake, there was no mention of additional names. Zelensky responded humorously, and Biden stood by as Zelensky made his remarks. Next, Biden spoke about the need to pace himself, referring to a presidential debate where he performed poorly. He claimed he wouldn't be traveling 15 time zones a week before the next debate. This was misleading. Biden returned to the U.S. from Europe 12 days before the debate, not a week prior. He spent significant time preparing at Camp David before facing Trump in the CNN presidential debate in Atlanta. Regarding NATO, Biden criticized Trump, suggesting that Trump had only recently learned about NATO. This was inaccurate. Trump had actually stated at a Florida rally that he hadn't known much about NATO before his first summit in 2017, not recently. Biden's comments misrepresented the timeline of Trump's statements. On the topic of Hamas and the West Bank, Biden claimed there was growing dissatisfaction with Hamas among Palestinians in the West Bank. Public opinion polls, however, suggest otherwise. A recent survey indicated strong support for Hamas, with increased popularity since its attack on Israel last October. The poll showed significant backing for Hamas actions and its leadership in Gaza. In response to a question about the United Auto Workers Union's concerns about his electability, Biden claimed the UAW had just endorsed him. This was misleading, as the endorsement actually occurred over 5 months ago, not recently, as Biden suggested. Finally, Biden discussed his stance on the U.S. occupation of Afghanistan. He claimed he was always opposed to the occupation and nation-building efforts. However, this too was misleading. In the early years of the war, Biden supported a sustained U.S. military presence and extensive nation-building in Afghanistan. He only became a critic of the war later, during his tenure as vice president under President Obama. These inaccuracies and misleading statements raise questions about President Biden's narrative on several critical issues. As we approach the 2024 election, it's essential to scrutinize the facts and hold our leaders accountable for their statements. Thank you for tuning in to Infinity News. I'm Olivia Parker, and we'll be right back after this break.